My name is Emilia and today I'm sharing exactly how I planned my 6-month solo trip through Southeast Asia. If you're doing something similar and you need some help on where to start and how to plan, then this is a video for you. I've been to Southeast Asia 3 times before and I've learned a lot about what you need to think about when you plan a trip to Southeast Asia. In this video, I'm going to share with you how I've planned my 4th and upcoming trip going there as a solo traveler. This is the second video in my pre-travel mini-series that I'm doing before I start my travels. By the end of this video in the mini-series, you'll learn how to choose your destinations and what you need to think about in terms of preparations, like visas, vaccinations, and all that stuff that is necessary to sort out before you travel. You'll also get an idea of what the trip might cost you so that you know how much you need to save up. Plus, I'll share my planning templates so that you can use them to plan your own trip. The first step in my planning process was to research possible destinations in Southeast Asia and note them down in a planning template. If you want to follow along as I do this exercise in this video, you can download the exact planning template that I use from the description down below. There are 2 tabs in the template, and the tab that we're using for this exercise is the Destinations tab. So for me, when choosing destinations, the most important criteria is that I should be able to surf at the destination I go to, and I want to be able to surf small, mellow, beginner-friendly baby waves. I didn't spend that much time reading about the destinations at this stage. I just noted down everything in the file that felt a bit appealing to me. So how I started my research was that I first Googled beginner-friendly surf destinations in Southeast Asia in general, and I noted them down in my file. Next, I went on Google Maps and I checked what countries exist in Southeast Asia and also countries nearby, and then I Googled if there are any good surf spots or surf destinations in those countries. I also searched a bit on YouTube and TikTok. Like if I wanted to check the Philippines, for example, I searched for Philippines beginner surf, and then I quite quickly found a couple of areas in the Philippines that are good for surfing. Plus, at the same time, I got to see some videos from these destinations to get a feeling if this is the kind of destination I want to visit or not. And if it was, I noted it down in my file. This became quite an extensive file, so I knew I had to narrow this list down, and that was the second step in my process. So now that I had this big list of potential destinations that I just dumped into this planning template, I started to mark my top choices. Let's say it was maybe a top 10 list, and for each destination I noted down the following. I noted down the country. If it was an island, then I noted down the name of the village or the town, and I also noted down the names of the surf breaks in the town. Then I also noted down dry season dates, wet season dates, and when is the best time to surf for beginners at this destination. I once went to Bali during wet season because I did not even know that wet season was a thing. I was very young at this time, and I kind of learned my lesson that I prefer to go and spend my hard-earned money and vacation to travel to destinations when it's dry season. I prefer no rain and no monsoons. So that's kind of an important criteria for me personally. As for the best surf season for beginners, I think that a lot of the famous surf breaks in Southeast Asia work throughout the year. But I just wanted to check if there are any times during the year when it's not recommended for beginners to surf, just so that I don't go when the waves happen to be really big. Next, I also noted down cost estimations. So what I did was that I mainly looked at the accommodation cost per night at each destination, just to get a rough idea of what it might cost to stay there. For example, there were some destinations that I noted down that looked so amazing, but when I looked at the accommodation costs, what I could afford was to live in a tent, and that's not really what I'm looking for during this trip, so I decided to strike those destinations off my list. Next, I also looked at and noted down local surf schools and surf instructors, just checking if there are any around, so that I don't end up going somewhere where there's limited rental or not a lot of good boards or surf schools as a beginner. I also looked at transport options both to and from the destinations. I looked that flights weren't too expensive, and I also checked what the transportation options within the destinations were. Safety is also an important aspect, and I checked that the destinations that I noted down were considered quite safe for female solo travelers. Lastly, I also tried to get an idea of the overall vibe at the destination, so I looked at videos and I read some blog posts just to get an idea of the vibe. So this gave me a good overall idea if the destination is even a good destination for me. Like, is it something I can afford, and is it safe for a solo female traveler? Those that didn't fit after I did this check, I crossed out of my top 10 list, and this exercise also gave me a good idea of when is a good time to visit those destinations that were still in my top list. So, for example, I could see that one destination had its dry season from August to October, and it said that the surf was pretty much good year-round for beginners. So I noted down that if I go here, I should probably go around September or October when I start my trip, because if I go there later, then it's gonna be monsoon season and rainy, and that's something I want to avoid. Okay, so now we have a top list of destinations that fit me, they fit my budget, and I have also noted down around what time is good to visit those destinations if I want to avoid the rainy season and the monsoons, and also be able to surf beginner-friendly waves. Let's go to step number 3 in my planning process. Step number 3 in my planning process was to check visa and entry requirements for my top destinations. Like, can I even get a visa? What visa options exist? How long are they valid for? And how do you apply for it? Is it possible to do a visa extension, and if so, how? Many Southeast Asian countries offer 30-day tourist visas that you can apply for either online or sometimes even when you arrive at the airport. They're usually quite affordable. I've planned to stay around 20 to 29 days to each country that I go to. That way I don't have to bother with the hassle and the cost of extending my visa. It's probably not a big hassle, but I felt like 28 to 29 days is enough time for me. Also, by planning to stay just under 30 days and not exactly 30 days, just feels a bit more comforting to me, just in case I would miss my flight for some reason and risk overstaying my visa period. That actually did almost happen to me once when I was in Bali, so they cancelled all flights to and from Bali due to a volcano eruption. The day my flight was booked, they started operating again, but I'm not sure what would have happened if I had overstayed my visa due to this, if my flight had gotten cancelled. And I'm also glad I didn't have to find out. But this is why I prefer to have a little buffer in my planning. For destinations where I want to stay a bit longer, I checked how easy it is to extend the visa and for how long it's possible to extend it, so that I don't accidentally plan to go somewhere for, I don't know, 3 months for example, and then they don't even allow you to stay for that long. Okay, so now that I know the visa and entry requirements for my top destinations and also how long I'm allowed to stay there, I noted this information down in my planning template. Then I also started setting more exact dates in my planning templates, and that is step number 4. Okay, step number 4, setting more exact dates. So when it was time for this step in the process, I first started thinking a bit about how many destinations I feel like visiting. My goal for this trip is slow travel. I don't want to rush from place to place. I more want to form a little life at each destination instead of just moving around every day. So in the end, I decided that for me, 4 countries is a good amount, and then if I change my mind during my trip, I can always add destinations. So I looked at what destinations in my top list are best when in terms of weather and in terms of surfing for beginners. Like I said, I want to go during dry season to all the destinations I'm planning to visit. And based on this information, I puzzled together travel dates that would ensure I visit 4 different destinations during dry season when the surf is beginner friendly. Step number 5 in my planning process was to book flights and accommodation. I tried to book my flights around the dates that I had set in my planning template, but of course sometimes flights are not available on those dates, or it's cheaper to fly on other dates. So I had to be a bit flexible there while still trying to get my stay to be under 30 days in most of the countries I'm going to for visa reasons. One thing that's good to know is that many countries require you to be able to show a return ticket or a flight out of the country before your visa expires. So it's something they might ask you for upon arrival at the airport, and if you're not able to show proof of onward travel, they might deny you entry. So always look up what the specific requirements are for the destination that you're going to so that you avoid any surprises at the airport. As for accommodation, I've only booked the first few nights at each destination because I don't want to lock myself to a certain area for too long. I think it's always nice to explore different areas in the destination you're going to and decide what area you like the best if you're planning to stay for a while. Most of my bookings are hostels. It's a great way to meet people when you're solo traveling. Just make sure you bring locks for your backpack and for your locker so that you keep your valuables safe. So I bought these off Amazon, and you can use this longer one to lock your bag to like a bed or something, and then you can also use one of the smaller locks to lock your valuables into one of the safety lockers that many hostels have. I will leave a link down below in the description if you want to get these. I mainly use booking.com to make my bookings because of their loyalty programs. They have a lot of good discounts and offers. Some hostels don't exist on booking.com, so for those I used hostelworld.com instead to make my bookings. Step number 6 in my planning process was health and safety preparations. I made sure all my vaccinations were up to date, and I also checked if there are any vaccinations I have not taken before that I should take. I went to a vaccination clinic to check this and ask them for advice. Some vaccinations require multiple shots with weeks or months apart, so it's very important to check this ahead of time. Apart from vaccinations, I also have some extra tips on what you can do to avoid traveler's diarrhea. This is so common to get in Southeast Asia, and it sucks because you can have it for weeks. The first time I got it, I even had to go to the doctor after a few weeks because it wouldn't go away by itself, so I had to get it treated. Since I pretty much always get this when I travel, I decided last year when I went to Indonesia to take extra precautions. I looked up everything you can do to avoid getting it, and one of the things I read that you can do is to take probiotics starting 2 weeks before you start your travels. You need to take them daily, and then I personally also continued to take them for about 2 or 3 weeks when my trip had started. Apparently this helps strengthen your gut and make it more resilient to new bacteria in food and water. I'm not sure how scientifically proven this is, but I was prepared to try anything to avoid traveler's diarrhea, and it actually helped. I only got a tiny bit sick for about 2 days, which is nothing compared to previous trips. Apart from taking probiotics, I also drank and brushed my teeth with bottled or filtered water. I avoided ice. I did not eat any raw food that has been washed in the sink, like fruit or vegetables that have not been cooked and prepared. I also avoided meat and fish. Meat because I normally don't eat meat, but also fish because the first time I got sick in Southeast Asia was from eating fish, and that was even fish from a quite high-end restaurant. So even if people generally say that you should avoid street food or food from places that don't look like they have great hygiene, you can also be unlucky and get sick if you eat at nicer restaurants. I know this is maybe a bit extreme, and by the end of my trip I did cheat a bit and I did have some salad and some fish. I figured maybe my stomach has gotten a bit more used to the bacteria now and maybe it's not going to be as sensitive. It was unfortunately after I ate a little bit of salad that I got a tiny bit sick, but it was honestly not that bad. Another thing related to health and safety prep that I did was to arrange a travel insurance. Do not skip travel insurance and make sure it also covers what you plan to do during your trip, including surfing. Some extreme sports like river rafting, for example, aren't always included in standard travel insurances, so you might need to add like an extra extreme sport package or something like that. Also, make sure to check that your country's government or your travel insurance does not advise against travel to any destinations, because if they do, your travel insurance might not cover you if you go there. So make sure to check this and ask about it when you buy your travel insurance. I've seen quite a few cases with people when I've traveled that have gotten injured and they did not have a travel insurance, or they didn't know that their travel insurance didn't cover them for that specific situation or that specific country that they were in, and medical costs can be really high if you don't have a travel insurance. Another thing I did was to renew my passport. Many countries require you to have a passport that is valid for at least 6 months from your arrival date. Lastly, I also got an international driver's license to be able to rent and drive a scooter. Many countries require you to have both your own driver's license but also an international driver's license if you want to rent and drive a scooter, so make sure you get that. The last thing I've done to prepare for my trip is to create a master planning file where I keep track of everything. In that file I track what's booked and what's paid for, the documents I need like visa, passport, insurance, and extras like SIM cards and things I need to buy before my trip. And for everything in the file I have added approximate costs or exact costs. For each item I also have the status so that I know if I have done it yet or not. This helps me see the big picture and avoid any last minute stress so that I don't forget anything important. It also gives me a quick way to check when I will be in each country, and also it gives me a good idea of what the trip will cost. You can download my planning template from the description down below if you want to plan your trip like I do. It's the tab called Travel Plan that I've used for this. That was my whole process for planning my solo surf trip through Southeast Asia. In my next video, I will show you how I'm packing for my 6 months in Southeast Asia, what I'm bringing for surfing, and how I'm keeping everything organized. If you want to access the planning templates, check the description down below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the packing video. You can watch this video next if you want to follow the whole pre-travel mini-series. It's the first video of this pre-travel mini-series where I talk about why I quit my job to travel and what I'll be doing during these 6 months.